the eDiscovery Zone live from ILTA 2011 in wonderful downtown, well actually wonderful Beltway, Opryland, Nashville. This is Tom O'Connor, Director of the Gulf Coast Legal Technology Center, along with my good friend Browning Marean of DLA Piper, and our special guest first here this morning, fresh off of our tour of the 10,000 Maniacs set last night.
And you still got the wristband on.
Yeah.
30th anniversary tour.
That's right. It's Craig Roy of, and I know the first name is Lowndes.
Lowndes, Drosdick, Doster, Kantor, and Reed.
That's well said. I would never remember that. In Orlando, Florida.
Yes.
And you are the Director of IT. Is that your official title, IT Director?
That's my official title, yes.
So our goal here this morning is to get somebody, Browning and I, of course, love to pontificate about the e-discovery space because really there's so much mumbo-jumbo, nobody can correct us when we're wrong. But my thought was to get somebody who really works with the ugly results of the recommendations that we make. What's it like down in the mosh pit of the IT department in the e-discovery world now?
A mess, because I think a lot, we're not thinking through things still. There's still that lack of communication through the steps of the process, especially early case assessment and trying to figure out all of what you have.
No, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt right off the bat, but when you say we, who do you mean?
It would be the litigation team that's involved, and if they're getting the IT people involved right away, the lit support. Not always. Not always. A lot of times they'll take on the case and not realize, they'll listen to the client. The client says, well, we have a few emails, and a few emails is a few hundred gigabytes of information that you're now harvesting.
Right.
And when you start interviewing the IT professionals, you're starting to realize more about how are they saving this stuff, and your scope just went from here out to here of what you're going to collect and preserve before anything happens to it.
Following up on that, one of the things that I sense in large law firms is that the attorneys, it's almost a generational thing, the attorneys that are really the leaders of the trial teams, by and large, got into those positions before e-discovery became so important. And so, unfortunately, e-discovery for them is not a top-of-mind exercise. And so, in many cases, lit support organizations are sort of cleaning up after the elephant has gone through or decisions have been made without regard to lit support and the strains it puts on IT.
Right. And you're going to still see a lot of that. What about the shops, the smaller firms that don't have in-house lit support, and they've got attorneys making decisions? Let's take this electronic world and still make it an electronic version of paper. We're still seeing a lot of that, especially in Florida. We're seeing a lot of it.
I've decided that we really are using the wrong metrics in many situations. And I think that we ought to go out and figure out how much it costs for a good Mercedes sedan, say $40,000, $50,000 bucks. And say in some of these e-discovery cases, you're talking 5, 10, 15 Mercedes sedans. Who should be making that decision? When should you be making it? And then calibrating it. Do we need to buy 15 Mercedes? Can we get by with 5? I think it's a huge challenge for us.
And along those lines, to even back up one step in the process, do you, as an IT person, get asked to become involved in the RFP process at all? Because one of the problems I have as a consultant, of course, is I'm typically called in when an RFP or a formal or informal, but a case is fired up, people are starting to solicit information from vendors, and all of a sudden they've got 5 bids that don't seem to resemble at all what it was they were asking for, and literally their own terminology, different evaluations, the definition of what processing is can vary widely from vendor to vendor. Do you get involved in that process to help standardize that?
Yeah, we do, and we've got a good team of folks. We've got an e-discovery team in the firm now, and they're very well versed in all of this, and we go through a good process. We look at I mean, we know all the vendors and the players in our neck of the woods, so it makes it easy for us. When you see the profile of what you got coming in, this vendor is going to be better apt than this other vendor at this, and a lot of it's going to depend upon how they do their pricing model, or when you're looking at the data that's being presented to you, is it very disorganized? Well, I'm going to be looking for something that's going to filter and cull a little bit more. If it's a very organized collection and it's a very targeted collection, then I'm going to look for something where the pricing is pretty moderate on the front end to process it for what I'm going to need for ultimate production.
Are you seeing much volatility in processing pricing?
Yeah.
And
a lot of competition, a lot of downward spiraling as far as costs.
Let's assume we're sitting here in 2016. What will have transpired in the e-discovery market? What's your best guess as to the trajectory?
Well, I would hope that we're going to have a little bit more clearer direction from the courts as far as the process, and I would hope that a lot more companies are going to be involved in their overall records management. I think once they get burned or a good competitor gets burned, they're going to start looking more at that records management and how to make sure they're tracking everything. I think data protection, data leak protection are going to be some catalysts in this. I also think that we'll likely see insurance policies that will target e-discovery.
Although, I think one of the unspoken drivers in e-discovery that's going to be coming to the fore is where you have insurance companies that have a duty to defend, and they haven't capped it, or it's not a wasting policy. That the real scream about the cost of e-discovery are going to come from the insurance companies providing the defense. The other thing that I think is really unsettling is this recent lawsuit against McDermott and now the supplier of the contract attorneys, and I think the vendor. I know nothing other than what I read in it, but just on the surface, the thing that concerned me the most about it is that the fact pattern goes on all of the time. Again, not knowing what the backstory is, but from a risk management standpoint, I think you're going to see more and more law firms with their risk management hat on coming in and making sure that law firms, in fact, have the resources and appropriate vendor relationships to really mitigate those risks.
Better service level agreements too are going to be drafted. More closer attention is going to be paid to those what ifs. Right now we're focused on price and timelines, but I think we're going to see more of a focus there too.
What about the relationship with the client? We kind of touched on that a little bit, but do you ever butt heads with the client's IT department?
Oh yeah.
and the trend that I've seen more and more, which is clients with some decent IT staffing bringing some of this work in-house. How is that? Is that turning into a head-butting experience as well?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of that, but you also get the client that thinks they understand the process. So they're saying, well, we exported all of this and we made copies of all of that, and once you start going through and dissecting it and then telling them about certain risks, it's more of an education process to them and trying to allow them to reach that conclusion themselves.
Overall, lack of real education in this field, lack of comprehensive education. There's a lot of great programs that handle small amounts of people. The Georgetown program every summer, Ralph Losey's program, online program down in Florida where you are. But are you seeing, in your experience, I know you mentioned your firm has a team, so obviously they've got some internal skill set. Have you seen that rising tide lifting all boats? And if so, significantly?
There's so much unclear focus in this industry. It's a lot of calling on emailing you and emailing other peers about things you're not really sure of. And I think our network is fairly strong with supporting each other, which is good.
But I think the law schools have just been negligent in their education or lack thereof in this field. Nothing new there. We've always had that sort of ivory tower, town and gown approach that we, as the dean of one law school, who shall go unnamed, said to us, and we tried to approach him about a program for education on e-discovery several years ago. We train architects, not carpenters. And I said, well, excuse me, I guess we're done here.
But do you see a trend in law schools with the emerging young associates being more focused?
Well, I think they certainly want to demand. I think the pressure is going to come from the law students themselves. There's now, I guess, a couple of lawsuits against law schools for basically lying about their employment statistics and the prospects.
I'm shocked. People right out of law school are turning around and suing the school?
Unbelievable. All that legal training put to an ill use. But I think law schools, and I think maybe a trend, and certainly we see it, every now and then clients say, we don't want first-year associates working on our matters. And so I think in the fullness of time, we're going to go more toward the English model where you have somebody gets their formal legal education, they come out and they're a trainee. And I think it's 2 years in the UK before they are before they do that, like an internship, and get that kind of experience under their belt.
If you were telling attorneys as an IT person, here's what will make my life and therefore your job and our clients' experience easier, what would that advice be?
Plan and communicate. So it's thinking the process.
You can tell he's not a lawyer. He's able not only to answer the question quickly, but succinctly.
Yes. Yes. Craig, we lawyers believe in complex solutions to simple
you
problems.
You have no future in the law, my friend.
Probably not.
Do you think that those are lacking now? I mean,
I think it's. I don't know if it's just. Not thoroughly understanding it, so I'm going to avoid that and just deal with it when I have to deal with it, and or just my head's too focused on the case and what are the issues and what do I have to do to sell to the jury my case. So we talked.
The jury. That's a rather archaic term that I seem to recall from years ago in my practice. Do people still bring cases to juries? Browning, are cases going to trial?
So I have heard and do in part believe.
What's your experience, real quick, we've only got about a minute left, but we hear these statistics, a precipitous drop in the amount of cases that actually go to trial.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that too.
Okay. I mean, 10% or less now is what we're being told.
Well, in federal court, it's less than 2%. I think it's just hovering above 1%.
Right.
And I think a major contributor are the runaway costs of getting to trial.
Right.
I mean, the clients are pretty well bled dry at that point.
Right.
So.
But are you seeing a lot of trend now in case management where it's let's know what our universe is and let's pinpoint times when we got to start doing things before we start taking on these costs?
Yes, attempts at it, but
getting
not
better. Yeah. But I'm not sure we're at the good level yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is being scared of the unknown because you're only knowing what you got on the surface from your client, and then all of a sudden things start appearing.
And what better words to exit the e-discovery zone than with fear of the unknown? Special thanks to our great friend Greg Roy, IT Director in Lowndes down in Orlando, Florida, and also to our host, TechLaw Solutions here from the floor of ILTA 2011